Fuck your job. Do only what you are paid to do. You are not slave. You are not office bitch. Hard work is bad for you. Hard work only good for making somebody else rich. They say
Let's talk about quiet quitting. So, quick definition, quiet quitting is this new work trend that has been popping off lately. Turns out there's no actual quitting involved in quiet quitting, but what you're actually doing is you are just meeting the bare minimum of your job description. There's no going above and beyond and exceeding expectations and working extra hours like some employers expect. You are just doing only what is required of you and nothing extra. And with that extra energy that you're saving from not dedicating so much of your life to work, you then use that energy towards the things that really matter to you, like your friends and your family and your hobbies. And turns out quiet quitting is actually a really polarizing topic. There are some people that are fully for it.
People are quiet quitting. They're just going to their jobs and then just doing the job from 9 to 5. And then hold up, that's just working. That's work. You realize that's work.
And then there are some people that think it's
the worst idea I've ever heard. This is like a virus. This is worse than COVID. If you're a quiet quitter, you're a loser. You're un-American.
Personally, when I first learned what quiet quitting was, I was like, oh, so there's a name for what I've been doing at work lately. And then my second thought was, should I feel guilty about that? Like, does that make me lazy to be a quiet quitter? Does that make me a bad person? And you know what? After reading a ton of articles on this topic, both for and against it, I've concluded that no one should feel guilty for quiet quitting, because there are probably some very valid reasons why you are quiet quitting. Like, people don't just disengage from work for no reason. And there was actually a Gallup survey done just earlier this year that showed that quiet quitters make up 50% of the US workforce. And this same survey also showed that this year, 60% of people are emotionally detached at work and 19% are miserable. Those numbers are shocking and very concerning. Like, there's clearly something bigger going on here. So if you, like me, also feel like you belong to this 50% of people who are quiet quitters, make sure you keep watching this video, because we're going to be going over 4 reasons why you might be quiet quitting. And along the way, we'll talk about some things that both we and employers can do to make work a more positive part of our lives so that we don't even have to worry about quiet quitting being a thing in the first place. Your workplace expects you to overwork. If you're working in the private sector, this expectation could be reinforced with promises of bonuses or promotions or free dinners and Uber rides home if you stay in the office past a certain time. If you're working in the public sector like me, I'm currently working in a hospital as a social worker. There's definitely no financial incentives like that at all for working hard. But since my first day there, I definitely got the sense that you should be doing more than what is expected of you, and that doing the bare minimum is actually frowned upon, because there is always enough work to do that you could be working through your lunch and staying 2, 3, 4 hours late every single day. And around me, I could see that people were busting their asses, not taking breaks, and staying super late. And when you're in an environment like that, it's hard not to feel compelled to do the same. And I would feel so guilty for taking a break of any kind, like even to eat my lunch. And looking back now, I'm like, oh my God, that was so unhealthy and unsustainable. And in healthcare, this level of busyness and these high volume workloads is just the norm. There's always some sort of news headline out there about staffing issues in hospitals, and I can see on the inside the impact that this is having on the staff. A lot of the time, they end up having to work multiple people's jobs and pretty much doing free labor, and it's burning people out. So to keep burnout at bay, I now make it a point to take my full lunch break and leave on time. And I now say no to certain asks of me, which is a big deal for me, everyone. And obviously, if there's a crisis situation where I'm actually needed, then I will address it then and there. But overall, I don't let work stress rule my life anymore like I used to. And even with these new boundaries, I'm still working really hard and I'm still getting everything that I need to get done. And nothing has changed about my output, but what has changed is how I feel internally. Like, I just feel a lot lighter and calmer. And you know what? That may or may not make me a quiet quitter. Either way, these are the boundaries that I need to have for the sake of my sanity and my self-preservation, and so that I can continue to be a functioning social worker. Now, this issue of being expected to overwork is definitely a much bigger issue of the system and of capitalism exploiting people for their labor, and we don't have to get into all the details here. But what we can do is we can refuse to play into the system. We can set the boundaries that we need to in order to maintain our well-being. And as long as you're getting everything done that you're required to, and you're not rolling in super late or dipping out super early, there is absolutely nothing wrong with not falling for these unspoken expectations to overwork and not being a super keener all the time. We are humans, not productivity robots. We have something called our health to take care of, and if taking care of our health requires us to be a quiet quitter, I stand. Your relationship with work has changed. A lot of people have a totally different relationship with work now after having gone through a pandemic. It's a whole different world out there, and we've all been forced to reprioritize our whole lives. And for a lot of people, this reprioritizing has meant that they have chosen to make work less central in their lives. Personally, for me, I still am very passionate about my career as a social worker. I just don't put it as high of a priority as I used to. I definitely prioritize my health and my relationships more now, and I don't see my career anymore as my one and only life's purpose like I used to. We live in a society, and as a society, we've been putting such a huge emphasis on career and on finding work that you're passionate about and then devoting yourself fully to this work because it's your life's purpose. And before the pandemic, before we were all forced to slow down, I don't even know if people really had the time or the mental space to even consider, like, is this career-focused way of living even healthy? And is it how I want to be spending my one and only life? And don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with devoting yourself to your career. I actually find it really admirable when people are so passionate about what they do, and it's this passion that drives them to keep working hard. I just don't think it's fair to impose this expectation on everyone, especially after this collective reprioritizing we've all been through. Some people might have chosen to prioritize their family or traveling the world, and they might see their work only as a source of a paycheck to then support their family or their travels, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So when I hear people saying that quiet quitting is the worst idea ever and that quiet quitters are losers, I would really challenge this and ask, like, is it possible that these people are just inflexible and maybe they're caught up in the traditional mindset of making work their everything, and maybe it's making them uncomfortable that people around them are adopting a different opinion to theirs? There needs to be more space and acceptance and flexibility in the workplace for people who have chosen not to make work their number one priority. And after the pandemic, this is millions of people. So if employers are going to want to retain employees and keep them happy, they really have no choice but to be more flexible and stop expecting people to be superstars going above and beyond all the time. Like, it's okay for people to just be average. As long as they're still reliable and still getting their job done, they should be allowed to choose to focus on their life outside of work if that's what they want, and they definitely shouldn't be penalized for it. You feel unsupported at work. There was another Gallup survey done in 2018 that showed that the top 5 causes of workplace dissatisfaction are unfair treatment at work, unmanageable workloads, unclear communication from managers, lack of manager support, and unreasonable time pressure. Now, there is one thing that all these 5 factors have in common, and that is your boss. It's kind of amazing how big of an impact this one person can have on your life, whether you like it or not. And it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for bosses to not even treat their employees with basic decency and respect. And I mean, anyone with a boss who treated them like that would be miserable at their jobs. Now, it's also important to remember that managers are human too, and they're probably just as burnt out as anyone else, if not more. But I mean, that's still not an excuse to not support and respect your employees. Like that's in their job description. I've had some managers who have been great and some managers who have been not so great. And honestly, having a good supportive manager who you can trust makes the world of a difference. I've had some managers who I felt were really great listeners and made an effort to actually get to know you on a personal level. I would have one-on-one supervision with them, which made me feel like they really cared and wanted to support my growth and learning. And overall, I genuinely felt like they wanted to see me succeed. On the other hand, I've had managers who I felt were really only there to be disciplinary, authoritative figures. They were either dismissive or invalidating of any concerns I had. I did not feel like they valued what I had to say or my opinion, and as a result, I couldn't trust them. And this just made work feel like a really unsupportive environment, and it sucked. Bottom line, managers have a critical role to play in keeping employees happy and engaged at work. And first of all, companies need to choose the right people to be in these roles, people with the right nature who are warm and caring and compassionate in their leadership style, and they need to train them properly on how to be good leaders, equip them with the skills for active listening, for supporting their employees' growth and learning, and for building collaborative teams. Managers, like employees, need to be supported too. Your job is not a good fit for you. The main argument I saw out there against quiet quitting was that quiet quitting is really going to hurt your career advancement and your future financial health. Because if your employer sees that you're a bare minimum kind of worker, you're going to be the last one in line to be chosen for any kind of promotions or raises, and you're going to be the first one on the chopping block when it comes time for layoffs. And I'm not arguing against this at all. I think that's completely fair and reasonable. But I also think it's important to ask ourselves, are we quiet quitting because we're unhappy at work? And if the answer is yes, then maybe that's a sign that your job is not a good fit for you. Waking up in the morning filled with dread about going to work is just such an awful feeling, and really the time that we have on this earth is way too short to be in a job where we're so unhappy and where we're not our best selves. So instead of quiet quitting, why not quit for real? Get yourself out of that negative environment and find something that is a better fit for you. And chances are, once you're in an environment that's better aligned to you, you're gonna want to start putting in that work again because you're gonna feel more engaged and enthusiastic about it. Personally, I have no problems giving my all to something when I truly believe in it and I feel that it is worth it. And if finding work that you're passionate about and that aligns with your core values is really important to you, I am your number one cheerleader. I fully support you in going out there and discovering it. So those are my thoughts on quiet quitting. And even after hearing the opinions of people who are really against it, I still don't see a problem with choosing to only give a certain amount of your energy to your work. And especially after the couple years we've been through, there clearly needs to be some serious changes on a large scale to put a stop to this exploitation of people's labor, to move past this clearly obsolete mindset of making work your everything, and to allow more flexibility for people who have chosen to prioritize their health or their relationships or anything else that doesn't involve work. Let me know what your thoughts on quiet quitting are in the comments. I'm so curious to see what other people have to say about this topic. And until next time, I hope you are staying healthy and staying safe. Bye.